got it better than us.
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you to get the official debit cards of the Utah Jazz, University of Utah Sports, Real Salt Lake, and more exclusively at America First Credit Union. Joining the show now, the radio voice of the Utah Jazz. He's kind enough to join us on Thursdays. He's our buddy, David Locke. What's going on, David?
Not much. Just enjoying. I'm actually in the Bay Area today, so enjoying the beautiful sunny weather of Palo Alto, California, and doing a little work in a Palo Alto coffee shop. I think my net worth is not near anyone around me. It's good.
Would you get something good to eat or drink at least?
Yeah, I did. The coffee's really good, but I'm looking at these people, and I think they're doing really important. I'm looking at draft video, and they're, I think, changing the world. You know, it is Silicon Valley, so I think, I don't think I'm holding up to the par in this coffee shop. I think I'm going to hurt these people's,
How
you can.
you're dragging down the value of the coffee shop by watching basketball videos.
Yeah. It's bad. You can tell. It's impressive. You can see. I think they're all just AI bots, actually.
How much does what you're looking for in the draft change year to year based on what you've seen over previous seasons in the NBA or what you've learned from previous drafts?
No, because my premise largely is based on the analytics of how hard it is to get a player who can play, right? So after the 10th pick of the draft, from 11 to 30, 50% of those players will not be rotation players in the NBA. And frankly, only 7 of the first 10 will be. 2 of those will be all-stars, and maybe one of those will be an all-pro, is generally how it works in every draft. Right, so an all-pro is top 15 player in the league. There's just not. It would be unlikely that more than one of them comes out of a draft, right? Just by logic, or out of the same draft. And so, when I look at this, I always try to look at the draft in that ilk. Like, who's the chance to be the all-pro? Well, this year that's certainly hard to find. And then, I remember, when Willie Cauley-Stein was being drafted 7th by, I think, Sacramento. And, I was like, oh, that's the most obvious one to bust here. This is the one who's not going to be a rotation player in the NBA. He turned out to have a 10-year NBA career, but he wasn't really ever a regular, pure rotation player in the NBA. So you have to that's how I look at this whole thing. You want to talk top 10 players in the draft? Let's go find the 3 guys we think are most likely to not make it or not be rotate. I would classify Isaac Okoro at this point as probably a non-rotation player. Who are those guys? Why and why? What is the skill that most likely that happens to them? And then from 10 on, I'm going to look at the draft and be like, all right, who's got the skills that I actually just know he's going to play, right? So Devin Carter feels like if he's 14 and does sound like he could be 8, but if Devin Carter goes 14, I feel like Devin Carter's going to be in a 9-man rotation. He's physical. He's tough as hell. He's willing to make contact. He owns his space. He plays the position. He'll Jared McCain to me. I feel very comfortable that Jared McCain's going to be a rotation player in the NBA. I'd be really surprised if he's not. So that's how I look at it. So I always look at it the same way based on the analytics of past history of the draft and really have a hard time believing that the draft will be dramatically different one year to another because it actually hasn't shown to be that much the case over the years.
Taking a break from the Jazz for a moment, David, I'm curious, percentage chance in your mind that Bronny James ends up an L.A. Laker?
Well, what is the Lakers' second-round pick?
55.
I mean, that's probably the right spot for him.
Well,
he might just actually be the right pick at 55.
Oh, no. Well, the right spot for him is going back to college for another year. And
no, never. That's actually never the right choice.
Oh, well, he's not good enough to get drafted now. The only reason he'd get drafted is because he's Braun's kid. He's 6'1", David, and averaged 4 points a game at USC.
Yeah. I mean, you have to decide there's an upside because of genetics. Hey, I've said it before. Like, I watched 3 USC games because I was watching Isaiah Collier, and if his last name was Bishop, I would have never noticed he existed. Like, he didn't do anything. Like, you watch Cody Williams at Colorado and KJ Simpson jumps out like multiple times on the you're like, oh, that's another NBA player, and so's their center or their power forward, not Lampkin, De Silva. Yeah. De Silva looks like an NBA player too. Like, you're watching, you're like, oh, those are NBA players. Oh wow, there's a lot of NBA players on the floor in this game. When you watched USC, there was another kid on USC that popped a little bit, but it wasn't Bronny James. Like, so yeah, I agree. Like, if his last name was Bishop, I don't think we'd be talking about it. We can drop this, but on the genetic thing, he missed on the important genetic factors though. The size and strength and speed. It's like, did you know that Hans, genetics is a thing. Olsen, right? NFL player Hans Olsen. Hans's brother is just a normal sized dude. Really?
Yeah, he could have the brightest football mind in the world. He's not going to play. He's not going to the NFL.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
The measurables matter, and I mean the measurable. This might be, Ben. You've done this for what, 6 or 7 drafts now?
Yeah.
And I'm at 25 of them, maybe 30. Do you guys know how I started my career? That I literally wrote like an NBA draft book while I was a senior in college and advertised it in the Sporting News and sold it like it was a book. You would send me like $7.95 or something, and I would send you a book like in the mail. And we advertised in a magazine called the Sporting News. My roommate did an NFL draft book, and I did an NBA draft book in Sean Bradley's draft.
Okay.
Just to put it in perspective. So I'm on draft by 32 at this point.
Yep.
This might be the most, and the game's changing. This might be the draft where measurables plays more than any draft I've ever been a part of. Like, you have to really make a fundamental decision of what you believe in measurables. And I'm pretty stringent on, like, if you're not 6'4", I don't know that you can play in this league anymore. And there's like 5 guys that are 6'3", 6'2", 6'1" that are interesting. And, Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell are disproving that you have to be 6'4", but it's hard. It's really hard. And so Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell are 2 of the top 15 players in the NBA. I'm a little concerned if you're a top 50 or a top 80 player in the NBA, talent-wise, and you're under your measurable, then you're maybe a top 250 player in the NBA, or maybe a 350, or maybe 450, and then you're not a rotation player. So I think in this draft particularly, it's where, like, I saw the latest ESPN mock, and Cody Williams went 9, and I just paused it and tried to figure out if I was the Jazz, what would I do? And I really think I might have gone Ron Holland at that point for no other reason that his body's right. Like, he's got a chance. Like, his shooting metrics tell me he doesn't have a chance. But his 6'8", 210, or whatever it is, 190, it looks exactly like Harrison Barnes, except for the fact that he can't shoot, so then he can't be Harrison Barnes, and he lacks the wiggle like Harrison Barnes, which means he really probably can't play one-on-one. So there's a lot of reasons to be really scared of that, and there's a lot of reasons why everything I know tells me not to draft Ron Holland. But your other choice is either someone who might not be able to shoot with a torn ACL or somebody whose measurables are wrong at 10.
I think what's really fascinating is we're less than a week away from the first round. We'll be done, and there's not a single, other than maybe Bronny James getting drafted 55, there's not like a guaranteed pick anywhere. We don't know anything, which is really unusual.
What would you do at 1? I had a long debate with someone about this the other day. What would you do at 1?
Well, I would take Alex Sarr.
I would take Donovan Clingan.
Okay. I think that's what is going to happen.
Like, I just got to the point, like, here's the problem with the number 1 pick. Like, his salary in the third year is like $9 or $10 million. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to be getting something out of that salary. I can't draft a guy who in 3 years might actually not be ready to play and not be able to play.
I also said this to DJ, and this is what's hard, David. You are guaranteed to get the wrong pick at number 1. You are not going to get the best player in the draft at number 1. It's so weird.
Yes. I mean, just because it's so flat that the chances of one of the next 25 players being better in the first, even if Victor was a 40% chance he was the best player in the draft. Whoever the number 1 pick this year is like a 4%, which means there's 96% chance that somebody else is going to be better.
And so you're going to look like an idiot regardless of what you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's fair. I mean, I do probably look at the draft right now because I'm a little in love with Cody Williams and kind of wish we were back at 8. But there's a real value to being at 10 and not having to have as much salary into this pick.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. We started this the other day. I want your thoughts.
Okay.
Dalton Connect. I'm doing every stereotype imaginable here, or Baylor Shireman. Who do you like more?
Well, I like Baylor Shireman at 29 versus probably Dalton Connect at 7 or 8.
They're both on the board at 16. Who are you taking?
I'll probably still take Dalton Connect.
I'm just not convinced of that. Probably, though, you said. You're not totally convinced of it either.
No, and I actually need to sit down and watch Shireman more versus watching another guy in a game he was in. But
yeah, that's fair. That's literally how I've watched Shireman every single time, is that I'm watching Dalton Connect play Creighton, and I leave liking Shireman more. I'm watching, maybe was it Providence play Creighton? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Conference-wise?
Yep.
And I leave liking Baylor Shireman, but I didn't really watch his every move the same way I was watching Devin Carter on that film. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point on your part.
So I have a tendency to do that, but there are enough things with Connect that, like, he's going to be in the NBA in 4 years. And you know what? Shireman probably will be too.
I have one thing that really bothered me about Dalton Connect, and I might be totally wrong about it, but he just didn't touch anybody ever.
I almost wonder if that was, okay, this is getting really inside baseball, so I apologize, but like that Tennessee team was so good defensively and so bad offensively that his job may have been to don't ever pick up a foul. The one thing you can't do is be off the floor.
Okay, that would be the only explanation. Because, I mean, literally, so, like, if I was an NBA player and he got drafted onto my team and I watched his film, I would crack him so hard in the first practice. Like, you want my minutes? Let's go. You know what, right? Let's go. Like, I would crack him so hard in the first second. Like, oh, you want to go JC Big Sky and then go through the SEC without touching on? Welcome to the NBA. Boom.
David, talking about the inevitable failure of the first pick got me thinking, and I haven't asked you this, and you're the perfect person to ask about it because you knew Quinn Snyder well when he was here. There was a kind of and I don't know if this is true or not, but kind of the narrative when he left was he didn't want to do another rebuild. Well, in Atlanta, probably the right thing to do is gut the whole roster and do a rebuild. And I'll be really curious to see exactly what they do this offseason. But I'm curious, what do you think he wants to do?
Well, so I don't think that narrative is true at all. I think he thought that there would just need to be another voice in Utah. That his time had come and gone, and that it was time to move. I know enough that he was really truthful in that press conference. That wasn't a bunch of talking points. Like, he was truthful. So he just thought it was time. Like, it wasn't that he didn't want to coach anymore or anything like that. And I would actually say that I think his most enjoyable time he ever had in Utah was in the rebuild, right? Like, that's the easiest and most enjoyable time for, like, a coach Mike Budenholzer kind of fits into this mold too. He just took the exact opposite in Phoenix. But those kind of coaches that really like to get down and dirty and intellectual, they love the rebuild, right? They can play with stuff. They can do stuff. The pressure of winning isn't there. The team camaraderie, you're not dealing with chemistry. You're not guy with fighting over who gets the ball. You're not fighting over roles. You're just I think Quinn's favorite time of coaching his whole life was probably the year in Austin, other than having to drive the bus. Or, time in Moscow with some of that stuff. So, I don't think he's adverse to a rebuild.
Okay, let me ask you this, because we've talked about how you're going to get the first pick wrong, most likely. Who do you like where they are in the draft? who's in the best spot?
And like Jared McCain.
No, I mean team. And it can be San Antonio because they have the 4th and the 8th pick, and maybe that's the best option. But
no, I think everyone's talking about that. By the way, San Antonio just could lay a load on the middle of the street and people would say it doesn't smell. I think this is you can't tell me how bad this draft is and then tell me San Antonio's in the best position. There can't be if the draft is this bad, then there's no worse time to ever have the 4th and 8th pick.
Sure.
Right? It just doesn't work. The two narratives don't work, except for the fact that San Antonio can never do anything wrong. So therefore, everything's always perfect if you're San Antonio. Same thing with Sam Presti, who's done a really great job, but he's also made a ton of mistakes. Because this is really hard, not because he's not good at it, because you just don't hit 100%. Who has the best position in the draft? I mean, in some ways, I kind of like 20 and 30, 29 and 31, or whatever we have, right?
32, but yeah.
32, I can't get them right. But, if I think Baylor Shireman is close to Dalton Connect and Baylor Shireman's going to be on the board at 29, then, that's pretty good if you can get 29. The same thing is going to be 8.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad. I think KJ Simpson's really good. Is KJ Simpson going to be there at 32?
Probably. This is one of the things I think you're really good at, David, so I will compliment you here. I mean, you're good at a lot of things, but this is one of the things I think you're actually really good at is you are good at looking at the second step and not just the first reaction of what's going to happen. So I am curious about your thought on the value of that second pick on the second day of the second round. You've got this time in between the first round and the second round versus just the value of, teams are going to maybe want to trade for that because they've had more time to think about it. Do you see any other fallout or anything interesting with that second pick of just the value of it outside of the players that are on the board?
Well, I think there's a really interesting dynamic here that we have no idea what's going to happen. But let's just go to the 30 craziest people that are in the NBA, which is the owners or the governors. So you come through draft night and you've told your governor, I think we're going to be able to trade in the first round. We're going to be able to get, and then you don't. What's he doing to you all night? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? I wonder if 32 is going to suddenly yield something in a trade because somebody's under such pressure from the night before that they didn't get what they done. They got to get a win early in the day. This whole gap of stoppage between the first and second round totally changes the dynamic of what happens in these picks. And I actually think is going to overvalue 30 through 38 or 39.
Because the players didn't suddenly get better.
Right. And I can go through I did the huge research project to start the year. I think I went through every draft since Kevin Durant's draft. So it was all the drafts that have active players in it that are in the league and charted what every pick's value is. Those picks aren't that valuable. They're actually not much less valuable, frankly, they're a little less valuable than the late end of the first round, but not a lot. But your average pick in the is a borderline rotation player, 11 through 20. So the fact that you're getting a little less than that is, they're 11 through 30, so you're getting a little less than a borderline rotation player on average. But it means, you probably have about the same chance of getting a player. I'll tell you this. How about this one? Let's say we draft at 10, and we got Baylor Shireman and KJ Simpson at 29 and 32. I might bet that 5 years from now, the best player would come from one of those two rather than the 10th pick.
I think that leads into my next question of, would you rather have 29 and 32 or trade up to Phoenix at 22? Because if I'm Phoenix and I have no wiggle room, I would rather have the 29th pick and the 32nd pick and hope I get just two bodies and two cracks at the bat versus one option at a higher salary.
Interesting. Yeah, Phoenix needs to do that. That's a really good point.
They need to call the Jazz.
Yeah, that's a really good observation on your part. The only kid that has me a little intrigued, but I don't think I'm a believer in Gladwell's 10,000 hours, that you actually, the kid that you're drafting because he hasn't played yet and hasn't played enough, and so therefore you think he'll come together like the Knicks did that with Jordan Hill out of Arizona many years ago, with the 7th or 8th pick of a draft, and he never panned out. That player actually almost never pans out. I just think the NBA is too hard to learn at the NBA at that level, and so I think those players, when they haven't played and then get to the NBA and have to try to learn the game, are just too far behind. So I'm not a believer in that. But what's Missy? What's his name?
Yves Missy, yeah.
like if I'm Phoenix at 22, and I might kind of fits them perfectly, right? Like he might be able to play for them because you wouldn't ask him to do anything other than defend the rim and dunk.
Zach Edey, yes or no? Just in general.
I mean, obviously it mentions on matters on draft position, but I just don't think he can move well enough. Am I wrong?
He moved better than Donovan Clingan at the draft combine.
No, you're not wrong, David. Don't let Ben talk.
Wait a second. Give me that Clingan Edey movement draft combine. Like you're saying, like lateral movement.
Yeah, like all of his testing was way better.
That's super interesting. So that makes you wonder, like, is there some visual about Edey that he's so big that it makes you think he's slow when he's actually moving further than he is because he's so big, right?
I've never been impressed with Klingen's movement, to be honest with you. I'm not impressed with either the way they run. I don't love the way Klingen moves. He's just not that fluid. I mean, he's huge, just like Zach Edey's huge. But, yeah, I think Donovan Clingan had a pretty terrible combine.
Well, that's concerning. Boy, if I was Atlanta, I don't know what I would do because Rosh Hashay does not do it for me.
Zach Edey, I'll just tell you, had a better max vertical, lane agility, and shuttle run than
Okay,
Donovan
so what
Clingan.
I'd really have to watch there is whether or not on film in the game, it feels to me like Zach Edey has to wind up to move.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't watched a lot of them, so that's probably a really unfair comment. So I would need to watch Zach Edey more, and what I would watch for is exactly that. Is it that when he's testing and he knows he has to move, that he's actually pretty good, but that in real life it takes him a while to wind up to move? And maybe I'm just scarred by those 3 dunks over the top of him in the national championship game, right? Like that's the recency bias. And he was really slow to move on all of those. Like he couldn't get off the ground. He couldn't get his feet right. He couldn't get his balance right. And like, what happens when it's faster? And maybe those, I have to admit, like, as much as we talk about this on the show, like we're some sort of experts who are doing it, like I'm super biased with a small sample size that I watch of individual plays on guys, right? Like there's a play where Cody Williams commits a turnover that actually has me in love with him. Like he burst through a double team with an explosion on a dribble that I'm like, oh, if he can figure that out, he could be really, really great. Like, oh, that's it. That's the OS moment of when you're watching a guy like, oh, that's it. Like now he turned the ball over. He was too fast. He couldn't control his body. He's too lanky. He got bumped a little bit. He's not strong enough. Like, but I'm like, oh. And like I'm watching Ron Holland and guys are beating him and he doesn't slide his feet well enough to get back in front. And I can't get that out of my head, but maybe that's unfair because of the fact that he's going up against grown men in the G League. And like Cody Williams burst through a bunch of high school kids who were just playing college who aren't very good for Cal and Mark Madsen. So it's really hard. And just none of us are watching enough to really know. And frankly, the NBA scouts are watching all the time and they don't know.
He is David Locke. You know, when he's in San Francisco, he's sure to wear flowers in his hair. Thank you, David. We appreciate you.
By the way, I have to share this. So these guys may be way richer than we are, and they may be doing way more powerful things than us. But there was 1 minute in our conversation today where I openly paused. It was because I literally watched a guy walk out, get on his bike, start pedaling, the back tires as flat as can be, and he doesn't even notice. And just keeps pedaling away. So he might be changing the world, and he might be going to make $100 million, but he doesn't even know his back tire's flat when he's biking or care. So, we all have our strengths.
Indeed. We appreciate you, David. Thanks, man.
See you. Talk to you later.
I think I'd notice immediately if the bike's tire were flat.
My kids got new bikes recently, and we went on a big family bike ride last night. And by the time we got back, my daughter's tire was mostly flat. I felt bad for her. I really pushed her. She's 8. We went on a 5-mile bike ride, which is a lot for her.
Oh, for an 8? Yeah,
I don't know if she's ever ridden a mile in her life. So we really pushed her. And I felt bad. She was toast the last 3 blocks. And I looked, her back tire was flat. It's like, yeah, that's going to make it way harder. You're fighting your tire the whole time.
How easy was bedtime?
Oh, yeah, they were gone. Yeah, right, absolutely. She she came in, she cried because she was so mad at me for taking her on such a long bike ride, which is totally reasonable. And then we made ice cream and she went to bed.
She was asleep a short
time.
45 seconds later. Yeah.
Still love me
Slept
this
12
morning.
hours.
Yeah, right.
Woke up feeling refreshed.
Yep. It's good to be a kid.
Man, for an 8-year-old, 5 miles. That's
Not the plan. We just
that's
kind
a
of kept
healthy
going.
trip. Oh yeah. It's not like you were 2.5 out, 2.5 back.
No, we just kind of kept going and then thought, oh, I should turn around.
Stay tuned. We'll have more for you coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson
1, 2, 3, move it.
on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Now here you go again. You say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down?
Jake and Ben. Fight fans, the Professional Fighters League is making its debut in Salt Lake City. Coming up June 21st. That would be tomorrow at the Huntsman Center. Jaw-dropping knockouts, lightning submissions. Every fight promises to be an adrenaline-fueled spectacle. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Sean, the real O.C. O'Connell, is going to join the show tomorrow to promote some of this stuff. So we'll talk to him about that, and I'm sure tons
Get
of
him
other
in
stuff.
studio. I want to see that guy's face.
Oh, man, I saw O.C. at the NHL introductory
Yeah.
festival thing that
Yep.
was over there. He was down there with his kids. Yeah, it was great to see him. He's a good dude.
The best.
So he's going to jump on the show coming up tomorrow, and we're very excited about that. Hey, Ben, real quick, and this has nothing to do with sports, but the climate activism is officially out of control.
What? Because of woke or what?
Well, they're no. I mean, they're damaging paintings.
Yeah. Tomato soup.
They spray painted Stonehenge the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, I'm all for being kind to Mother Earth, but I don't think these types of things are having the effect that these people think that they are.
Sure.
But they've officially gone too far.
Okay.
Dateline. Stansted Airport in the UK.
Okay.
Ben, 2 Just Stop Oil activists were arrested after spray painting 2 private jets orange. The activists were reportedly attempting to target Taylor Swift's jet at the airfield, but did not manage to find it. This comes after 2 other activists were arrested spray painting Stonehenge yesterday.
Stonehenge, a notorious gas user. Those old rocks that were built without using gas.
Yeah, you do what you want to Stonehenge, but let's leave
Taylor out of it.
leave Taylor Swift out
Taylor
of it.
matters.
Can we?
You've seen Stonehenge? You haven't.
I have not. I've not.
Everyone says it's underwhelming. And you know what? I've never heard anyone say Taylor Swift is underwhelming. So to that point, maybe you got something.
Hey, T Swift cannot just simply walk down the terminal. It's not a thing she's able to do. And she's worth billions. Let her take a private jet.
She's notoriously like has one of the worst carbon footprints of anyone on the planet,
she
right? Because she just flies everywhere.
everywhere.
You know what I never hear in these stories is what the actual punishment is for the people. Like, I see them get arrested. I don't ever hear the follow-up on, like, did they get January 6th? Or, like, what are they doing? Are they getting 3 and 4 years in jail? I don't know. I never hear that.
Well, I think it depends on where you do it.
Like the lady
But
who glued herself to the floor at the NBA game.
I have no clue.
Yeah, right.
I'm
We
sure
don't know.
they get fined. Like, it's got to be trespassing, right? So I'm sure they get a trespassing ticket and get fined. I think the punishment for the gluings in particular is you just leave them there.
The rest of the game.
No, like the rest of whatever, you figure it out.
Yeah, you get off the floor whenever you get off the floor.
Yeah.
And then we're going to arrest you for trespassing as soon as you
I don't know
stand
what
up.
the half-life is on that super glue or whatever you used, but we'll see it when it ends.
Yeah, it might not be as good as your skin. Might be like a movie
It could be
Saw.
rough. Yeah, you're going to have to either like
It's going to be a Saw
rip that
scenario.
thing out of there, or I don't know what you're going to do, but not my problem.
You're going to have to make a very difficult decision about which limb you want to hold on to.
Ref inbound the ball.
If you want, yeah.
Good luck getting out of the way if it comes your way.
Here comes Walker
It's
Kessler.
really going to hurt.
He's going to land on you.
But hey, how hilarious is it, though, that they're looking for Taylor Swift's jet and couldn't find it?
Yeah.
Just hit two random
Just hit
planes.
any jet. It loses some impact.
We're going to make Tay-Tay pay.
It loses some impact.
Well, we can't find it.
If I was mad at Jake and I decided, not that I would ever do this or get in trouble for doing this when I was younger, go egg a car. And I just said, well, I don't know which one's Jake, so I'm just going to egg one.
Hit a couple.
Like, what? That's not fair. Some grandma.
Throw soup at a Van Gogh. Just leave Taylor out of this whole thing, all right? What'd she do to you?
Poor T Swift.
I know, right? They've gone too far. Too far, Ben. Find a different way to get your point across. That's all. You bummed we don't have more basketball to talk about?
No, I mean, we're going to get, again, the NBA season is really, Adam Silver's done a good job at this, which is, when did the season end? Monday? It's the last game?
Yeah, you've got the draft right around the corner.
Draft is Wednesday.
Summer League after that.
Summer League actually starts on the 8th. It's a little bit different this year. We're going to have a busy couple of days there. We've got Salt Lake Summer League. We've got Big 12.
Well, free agency before Summer League.
Yeah, free agency opens up. Technically, it's open now in the sense that teams can extend their players that are already on their roster. So, like the Cavaliers, if they could come to an agreement with Donovan Mitchell, could have that deal done. That negotiation can be going on already. But yeah, the first we're going to start hearing stuff, which is, I mean, it's still 11 days from now, but we got 2 days worth of a draft before that, a week off before the Salt Lake Summer League, and then Vegas starts right after that. And then it does die down a little bit, but for us, I mean, we're right into
free agency
football.
isn't what it used to be. Fortunately, I don't know. That'd be an interesting discussion, but it's not the headline grabber it used to be, you know? Because players just don't hit free agency anymore. They all sign the extension. So, I mean, do you even know off the top of your head who's the top free agent?
And it's only because we don't know what's going on with his extension is it's Paul George. If Paul George doesn't sign, because apparently the Clippers are unwilling to give him a max deal, he's going to hit free agency, and then it's still, I don't think he's going to have a deal in place on January 1st, you know, when this becomes available, though everyone seems to be pointing
July 1st.
What did I say, June?
January.
January.
That's way
That'd be
off.
way too long. July 1st, excuse me. Yeah, I don't think he's going to sign. It's not like he signs with the Philadelphia 76ers that morning, I don't think. Maybe he does.
Maybe he does.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Because they all have it worked out before the deadline for the most part.
Certainly have all been tampered with.
Yeah.
You know?
He knows what's out there.
Yeah. He knows who has money and who wants him, and his agent has done their due diligence of why. There's a reason he's not signing the contract that the Clippers are offering him, because somebody else is offering more.
New ownership with the Clippers, still morons.
I mean, it is funny to me.
You would just max him out and trade him. What's the matter with you? Why would you Why would you be splitting hairs on this? If Philly is going to give him a max deal, which, obviously, they don't have anyone on their team. They need just him, like that type of player. They're going to do it. Just max him out, bite the bullet, and trade him like you did it with Blake Griffin.
They kind of did this.
Do it with Paul George. What are you doing?
They had this weird situation, and it's part of it is that they got Kawhi Leonard to sign a contract for below the max. He signed a little bit less. Not crazy. He's still going to be making, 40, 50 million, whatever it is, but it's a little bit less than the full max. And they just assumed, well, if Kawhi will do it sounds like this is the case, then we just assume Paul will do it to be a good soldier.
It's the same trap that Dennis Lindsey fell into with Derek Favors and Gordon Hayward. Don't
do it. Yeah, just
max him out. Kawhi's willing to do it because he needs the guarantee. I mean, he can't trust his own body at this point, I wouldn't think. He needed to get ink on the paper. Derek Favors, for the comparison, Derek really wanted the stability. And, you look into what eventually happened to him injury-wise, it was probably pretty smart. He needed to be inked up for 4 years, make sure he had that guaranteed money coming in, and that was his priority. I mean, based on his background, too, that was really of value to him. Gordon Hayward didn't have the same value. He wanted to be maxed out, and the Jazz ended up splitting hairs over it and eventually lost Gordon Hayward because of it.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you. Just
sign him to the deal.
What can't you afford to do? Lose Paul George.
Right, for nothing.
That's the one thing you can't afford to do. You can afford to overpay him, actually. You can't afford to lose him for nothing. And you are putting yourself in a situation where it seems like you might lose him for nothing.
I mean, the Jazz are in a similar situation with Lowry Markkanen, honestly. Like, maybe you don't think Lowry fits into the window, whatever that is. Well, they'd be foolish not to sign him to as long and as much as they possibly could. Because, hey, maybe he fits in, maybe he doesn't. He gives you flexibility and a valuable player. Why would you ever not give him that money?
He's way closer to being worth $50 million a year than he is $0 a year. So pay him the close to 50 or whatever to keep him around.
And I'm sure that that's the Jazz mentality. Like, here, whatever you want.
Yeah, I think so too.
It should be.
Yeah, I don't. They're not paying anyone else.
With Paul George, it should be whatever you want.
Yeah.
And if we're too far into the tax to make us comfortable, then we can always flip James Harden or something like before
Paul
the
George.
deadline. Or Paul George before the deadline.
You can't trade something you don't own.
It's so foolish to ever lose a player in free agency these days. It's one thing where you're dying to extend LeBron and he just doesn't want to do it because he's going to go to wherever he wants to go. But that just doesn't really happen anymore. I don't think Donovan Mitchell's going to do that. I think Donovan's going to sign the extension this offseason.
I think so too.
Stick it out in Cleveland one more year, and if he really hates it, then just demand a trade. And you can put together a trade to wherever you want to go.
Yeah, you can get your agent to shop you around. It's easy to do.
And you get the guaranteed dough, no matter what.
But yeah, otherwise, free agency, I mean, there's just not a lot of super exciting names that are going to be out there. It's just not.
You get Hot Dog back.
Yeah. Taylor Horton-Tucker. Like, honestly, Chris Dunn is a name worth watching.
Yikes. No offense to Chris Dunn, but yikes.
For the Jazz, that's what's relevant.
Yeah.
Does Chris Dunn get a sign for $4 million somewhere or the vet minimum in Utah?
So, yeah, it's not going to be a spicy free agency period. Man, Paul George, that's a little spice there. But I got to imagine the Clippers just extend the guy.
I think they're waiting, and eventually they'll come to an agreement.
Les Ballmer's a moron. But he might be. He's trying to build his own building as the Clippers. They're going to sell 10 seats a game.
Right. Well, to a team that might not have Paul George anymore.
And they were the franchise that was like, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to create our own streaming thing. We're going to be first. 5 people signed up.
Got 4,000 people of all of Los Angeles. I mean, literally single-digit thousands signed up to watch the Clippers. Single-digit thousands.
Have you seen you remember the Major League scene where Jake Taylor's sitting in the snooty apartment and they're like, oh, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a Major League Baseball player. And they go, here in Cleveland? I didn't know we still had a team.
Yeah, right.
That's the Clippers.
Yep.
You play professional basketball?
I'm an NBA owner. Oh, you live in Los Angeles?
For the Lakers? Did you buy into that? Oh, no. The Clippers.
You'd be better off owning a team in another town. You know what I mean?
Seriously?
Like, oh, well, I moonlight in Oklahoma City where I own the team, but of course I live in Los Angeles. I choose to be here. It's like, no, I have to live in LA because I own the Clippers. No
matter how sweaty and angry Ballmer gets, he doesn't make the Clippers any more popular.
They've not become the location. They've had one huge day, which in retrospect is one of the great mistakes we've ever seen because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has turned into an MVP. The best day in Clippers history in the last 40 years is also coincidentally maybe the worst day they've had in the long run.
Yeah, because they don't have any rings to show for it.
And they don't have a good young player. Arguably the best young player in the NBA.
Yeah, but they inked Kawhi to 4 more years.
They did. They got Kawhi around.
Now they're going to let Paul George go for nothing in a squabble about what could it be, like $10 million. Couldn't even be that much.
We showed you.
Oh, man. We'll beat you in the finals, Paul. Doubt it.
Probably not.
I don't think Jimmy and Kawhi are going to get him there. All right, stay tuned. Wrapping up the show. Coming up next, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two niggas on the airways, talking sports. They got him made Jackson on soul. Loves his tie-dye, Ben's got style with his scarf. Oh my. From the islands to the basketball courts, they mainly engage in their thoughts. She's got wisdom
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Wrapping up Thursday show. I'll tell you what, Ben. Bill Belichick is really going through some sort of midlife crisis, isn't he? Some sort of, late life crisis?
He may not call it a crisis. He may call it winning.
Have you seen his former cheerleader girlfriend?
Oh, are they broken up with this 24-year-old?
No. That's the
new girlfriend.
She's a former cheerleader.
Okay,
she's
that's the
24.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this gal.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Former cheerleader girlfriend, not former girlfriend who was
Former
a
cheerleader, comma
girlfriend. Oh, that makes sense.
What's her name?
Words matter.
Something.
Yeah, apparently,
Jordan
wasn't it
Hudson.
her house that he was sneaking out of with his shirt on?
Pretty weird. Like a 17-year-old.
Man, I don't pretend to know what anyone's doing, what anyone in professional sports is doing at all. I promise you, I have no idea. I don't really want to know.
In their personal life? Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad the number of coaches we've known that we don't have that video of. You know,
isn't it like he and Bob Kraft are like the same guy? There was all that friction. It's like, well, you're the same person.
You're going into some building you're not supposed to be going into, or leaving some building you shouldn't have been in the first place.
He was not funny in that roast. Did you watch the roast?
Bob?
No, Belichick. Where
No,
I expected him to be funny because that would, like, if you talk to like Kyle Van Noy or people that Christian or people that played for him, they say he's like sneaky funny and has a personality and all.
Very smart.
Didn't really seem like it to me. But yeah, he's 24, huh?
How old's Bill? 70 something?
See, Ben, I have two daughters. You have a daughter, and I don't know what I'm going to do when they get to dating age. But I'm telling you what, if they're 24 and they bring home a 72-year-old, there's going to be friction.
And look, she's an adult. She gets to make choices.
You would have a problem with that.
I believe in that. It would be really weird because how old is her father or mother? Like 50?
Younger than that.
8?
Yeah.
If they had a kid young, that person could be 48 years old.
And imagine if the dad is like a Dolphins fan or a
just
Jets
anything.
fan,
Yeah. Well, you know who Bill Belichick is, and it's like
I'm upset. You bring home a 72-year-old football coach? Are you kidding? You're out of the will.
One of the great lyrics of all time is by the Zombies in Time of the Season, where this guy is talking to this girl, and he said, "What's your name? Who's your daddy?" He said, "Beware, is he rich like me?" Like, you're not richer than Bill Belichick is. It doesn't matter who you are. You can invite him over. You can invite your daughter's boyfriend over for dinner. He's not going to be impressed by what you've built.
Who'd you say sung that song?
The Zombies?
Yeah, that's a bird song. That goes back way before the Zombies.
Yeah, but that cover
I didn't even know they had a cover of it.
Oh, it's like the best version of it. Oh, we're talking. We started
There's
the show
no
talking
way
about.
it's better than the Birds version of it.
No, it's way better.
Not a chance.
I should have drafted that when we went back and did our covers draft. The Zombies Time of the Season is so cool. Way cooler than the Birds version.
I don't think we can be friends anymore.
Listen to it on
I've
the way
never
home.
even heard this song.
Listen to it on the way home and you'll be like, oh, this is the version I've heard.
The fact that you said a Zombies song is irritating me.
Everyone knows this song. Anywho. Yeah, it's a weird chapter for Bill. It's a weird, again, you just don't know who these people are. I've maintained that forever, and that doesn't mean people are bad. And Bill's not a bad guy for dating a 24-year-old, whatever. You do whatever you want, but as much as you could, I'm sure there's a million people who interviewed Bill Belichick in Boston forever. They didn't know he was going to retire and find a 24-year-old girlfriend. People did not have that in the cards. You just don't know what people's motivations are going to be.
Who would be the most likely member of our staff to date a 24-year-old in their 70s?
PK.
No, I don't think it is PK.
I'm just trying to think of who's closest to the 70s.
No. I'm thinking Hans.
He's always got the weird thing where everyone thinks his wife's his daughter.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
So maybe.
Oh, face like a catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right. Stay tuned. Speaking of Hans and Scotty are coming up next. 97.5, the
Thanks,
KSL
Christian.
Sports Zone.